So today we're continuing on our little staycation here in the northeast of the island, staying near to the town of Arta. But today we've gone a little bit further. We're now in Capdepera, and we didn't know this, but today is market day in Capdepera, and so we're going to have a little look around the market, and then we're going to go up to the castle and investigate the castle. So let's go.
Y tienes que salir, Manuela. Tienes que salir.
We weren't really expecting market day today. I didn't even look it up to find out what day market was in Capdepera. So we intended to come here just to have a look around the village and also to have a look at the castle that's here. So this is an added bonus. Yesterday we were in the market of Arta, and that was a really interesting market. And I guess many of the stalls that were there in Arta yesterday will have moved on and come here today. Our first impressions of Capdepera is it's very, very hilly. We managed to find parking without too much of a hassle. First car park we went into, parking was fine. There were a few empty spaces and people actually leaving, so I guess some people had already been to the market. Again, the smell of the olives as we enter looks like the square, and then the beautiful fresh fruit and vegetables. And then the next smell that hits me is the roast chicken. Just like everywhere in the office, it's very popular. It's the spit roast chicken. Lots of cafes, all doing plenty of trade this morning. It's nice to see someone from one of the restaurants coming out to buy some local produce from the market. A much smaller market by the looks of things than the one that was in Arta yesterday. I think there's much further down the road there. Flower store, keep Anita happy here. So we're on vacation, so we can't actually buy any flowers. A street with lots of steps at the end. We've got a tourist information centre. So now we go up to the castle up there.
Tengo más grande, pero lo tengo así de dos. No lo pones adelante de los anillos cuando se va a traer. Hay algunos que son
Been doing some step counting over the last couple of days, and each day we've managed to do our 10,000 plus. Our legs and knees are telling me so. If you've got big feet, that should fit you. going to turn the camera off now because it looks a little less interesting up here. If I see something else that's fascinating, I'll... Very far from the market, but we've already found well, we found the Ayuntamiento, the town hall, and right in front of the town hall there's parking, and there are no blue lines, so doesn't seem to be any restriction. This is actually called Plaza Sitjar. Lots of the streets got no entry signs on. That's because it's market day today. I mentioned Sitjar because that's the name of the old Real Mallorca football stadium. And Real Mallorca playing the last of their friendlies tonight, so we need to find somewhere to watch that. Will be available, I think, on the little alleyways. Will be available on the internet, on the Real Mallorca YouTube channel. To go on there, and all of the friendly matches have been available. I don't think there's any geo restrictions on them. There's a nice little alleyway.
High up already, don't they?
Very high up, yeah, and getting higher. So we're just having to wander around the back streets. These were never made for cars. Just lovely old houses. Fascinating doors. It gets very steep. I think I might have to turn the camera off again. Some interesting things up in this. Some different sculptures.
Clock. Wrong, isn't it?
I'm just going to turn it off because it's getting very, very steep here. As we get around the corner, we start to see the castle, but it's still very, very steep and still quite a way to go. I'm sure when we get up to the top of there, there's going to be some great views, so it'll make it all worthwhile. We will have our step count even higher. We're making our way up this very steep hill. We've just been passed by two cars. I don't think I would fancy driving up here. It's very narrow.
So maybe we could have, should have come.
Oops, Anita says we should have come that way. Well, I don't think so. I quite prefer to walk on the road, it seems less exhausting.
And go down that bottom.
So some people have managed to drive up here. I hope they don't have to reverse all the way back down. There's a castle restaurant. This looks, it's probably the entrance to the castle.
Facciamo che viene una specie di proprio.
So it looks as though there's another road that you can go to take you back down. We're going to go in, and there's a €3 entrance fee to go into the castle. So we've got to put our masks on because we're going inside. So masks on. Let's go and pay our €3. to enter the castle. Just look at the views. More of that when we get inside. We'll just come in here. Paid our entrance, and we're now inside the castle walls. €3 each, and you pay with a card. You can pay with cash. You put the cash into a machine, and anyway, we paid with a card, which seemed easier. As we go around, we'll find out a little bit of the history. Pardon? So this actually says, so we've got a thing here, it says it's an archaeological site that continues to be excavated. The southern area of the wall between the access gateway and the Rey Jaime Gate is part of the most, with most of the remains to be found. As time has gone by, a large amount of stone has been unearthed, and they were deposited here. There have been kept numerous remains of houses have been buried here, some of which have been dug out and restored. So we'll go and have a look to see what we can find.
Safer than the one yesterday.
Pardon?
It's safer than the one yesterday.
So here we can't go past. There's going to be lots of steps going up and down. Just little rooms. The thing is, if I go on one of those, nobody's going to be able to walk past me. I think we'll go that way, up the wooden steps. It's like industrial archaeology when you have a digger like that. Now we can actually look down on where they're excavating. See the battlements. We are right over the top of the village, and it's built on a hillside, so it actually climbs the hill. So there are places which are much higher for us to go. You can clearly make out parts that were actually rooms and doorways. When we were in Arta, we went up to San Salvador, and there's battlements there that are kind of difficult
Let's go back this
to walk
way.
along. Okay, so we've come to a dead end. You can see the battlement there comes to a dead end, and the rest of it remains unaltered. There is no no railing, which is what Anita was worried about yesterday. In Arta there was no railing. So I have to walk back along here. quite hilly to get up here, and once you're inside it's just as hilly. They have been doing some restoration. And already the views are magnificent over the village and the hills. We're going to go to the governor's house, which is even higher. Place where you can take a breather. And then just have a look at the views. Cactus. Well, we've got to go still higher. I think we're just following the signs to the toilet. Oh, right at the top there's a tower, and up here we've got an exhibition. Oh, what a climb! Actually is the governor's house, which is from the 17th century. So in the 17th century it was gradually depopulated, and the inhabitants settled outside the walls, and in the 18th century the establishment of the Bourbon dynasty of Spain led to political and military restructuring. A permanent army controlled by professional soldiers, the dragoons, arrived at the castle, and they were commanded by a governor who took charge of the defence and vigilance of the coast and the inland area. But by 1856, soldiers left the castle. There's the governor's house, and a permanent exhibition in here. It's quite dark. So we've seen lots of this basket work in the markets and the streets. Actually so dark it's difficult to read some of the things that are written on the sides explaining what everything is. Explaining how to do the basket work. Sometimes these baskets are huge. Here they are to carry the carobs. These are carob beans which can be used for cattle feed, but now they're starting to use them to make different sorts of food for animals and for humans, including coffee and chocolate. Can go up a little bit further. by sea. First inhabitants of the island settled here around 5000 BC. Since then, the communication bridge of the Majorca has brought different peoples and cultures who have gradually formed Mediterranean society, customs, beliefs, and a character, all deriving from the sea. Here we're getting a little bit of history of the island and how it's been protected and invaded over the years. And here's a map of the main castles. So this is where we are in Capdepera. This is where we live, very, very close to VR Castle. And there's the Castle of Arara, and in Poyensa, Casa del Rey, and in Felanich, there's the Castle de Santuari. That's what the Capdepera Castle looks like from above. Take a look at the model of what it might have looked like in the past, with all the houses where people lived inside the castle walls, protected by the garrison that was here. This is Alaro Castle. This is another one of the castles I've haven't visited for a long time because of various reasons, but it was actually where I was initiated as a scout. I took my promise as a scout right up the top of there. This is one I don't know. Castle del Rey. It's Poyensa. That looks very high up. That might be one we've got to visit at some point in the future. I always complain about graffiti in Palma, but here is graffiti that's actually telling us a little bit about the history. So there's some graffiti from hundreds and hundreds of years ago is actually giving us information about how people lived and all that time ago. Outside now. It's just 11:15, and it's going to go a little bit higher. Not sure why those bells are ringing. I think there might be a bell tower here, and children are practicing their skills at campanology. This actually is a defence tower dating back to the Muslim times of the 10th to the 12th centuries. It's high up, so it's located in a strategic point. Interestingly, it's got a square base as opposed to a round base, and it goes to a height of about 10 meters.
Somebody's already in there, so you can wait. Go on.
Looks as though it's somewhere where they store the furniture.
Oh, why don't you go? Go.
they've put boardwalks all around, and that's good because it protects whatever's underneath from further damage created by the visitors. And some reconstruction work here. Wherever you set up an encampment, one of the most important things to have is water, and if you're at the top of the mountain, that's kind of difficult. So this is a well. It's not a well that goes down to the water table. This is a tank that collects rainwater. So all the way around here, all the water will be collected. At the moment it's being collected by what look like copper pipes going down, and there'll be a huge tank down below which will hold the water that can then be drawn out here or at other points. We're going to go still a little bit higher. I think we're reaching almost the highest point. Here they've completely remodeled the floor. Here we've got the most amazing views of the town of Capdepera going out into the distance.
Where's that reservoir?
To Conductor. Reservoir over there, and the headland out to the distance. The property in front, which looks very interesting. They must have spectacular views. See in the distance a lighthouse. That's going to be interesting to have a look at later on, perhaps. We're not actually at the highest point. So one question is, I wonder why they didn't build right at the top there, which is where they've got the antenna. So our mobile phones are working. It looks as though there's some sheltered parking up there, so maybe you can drive up. There's this one place a little bit higher that we can go. Just up those half a dozen steps. And because it is a high point, it has a lightning conductor. So this pole here is used to conduct lightning. There's a big cable there which will go down to earth, and they're often placed at the high points, churches, schools. There's been a bit of controversy in the past when we first came here. Schools all had lightning conductors, just like this one. See right at the top there is where the lightning is supposed to hit and then come down to earth, go down here and go down the cable. But to attract the lightning, they put a radioactive source at the top. I'm not sure any of these still have radioactive sources, and the radioactive source, the scientists out there, ionizes the air around it. That means that the lightning finds a slightly easier way to get down to earth. But obviously having the radioactive source near to a school became very controversial, and so the ones in schools had to be removed or changed. Just while we're here, the house in front of us, I don't know what it is, whether it's a house or looks really as though it's in a spectacular position, but just beyond that is Mallorca. So we've got a clear view of Mallorca today. It's not crystal clear, but we can see it quite well. And the bell that I thought was actually telling us the time, it's not the bell that's telling us the time. There are some bells here that can be rung. There's the tower, the lookout tower, which dated from the 10th to 12th century, so it's really old. Just coming over this way, and there's a reservoir over there, and I think maybe we could see that from wherever we were. So there must have been an after. And this it's actually quite a nice looking windmill down there. Mallorca has some of the most beautiful scenery anywhere. So the information here on the castle says that the defence system here along the coast of Capdepera used to be a chain of these watchtowers which were built from the 12th to the 16th century. The earliest of these buildings have disappeared, and the towers we now see were built in the 16th century. The system of signals and codes consisted of linking a number of warnings passed on tower by tower from the place where the enemy were first sighted in the direction of the city of Majorca, in order to organise its defence and send help out to any other points in the island which was being attacked. In the 16th and 17th centuries, the optical signals were made with smoke by day and by fire at night.
You ready for me to ring this bell?
Go on then. Very loud, isn't it? The whole village will be coming up here to take communion with you.
You're allowed to ring it, otherwise that wouldn't be there.
Traditionally, these bells are made out of bronze. They do look as though they're made out of bronze. That one looks a little bit worn. This one looks a little bit newer. And it's got a different tone, hasn't it?
It definitely does.
So, you can actually play a two-note tune. I'm just dwelling up here a little bit because there's a lovely breeze. I've taken my hat off because it's so hot. There's some cloud cover, so it's not so bad. You can see the battlements from here, and I guess that's how they would have been historically, these battlements. There is no protection. If you fell off there, it was because it was your own fault. You should have known there was a drop on one side and not on the other. The problem comes when two people are rushing in opposite directions, and how do you pass? Well, one's going on the inside and one's going on the outside, and I want to be on the side where the wall is, please. Shall we head down? Just going to head down the steps now. We've been up enough steps, so we'll start going down. So, sound like a lot of fun, those bells, but they're very loud. Annoying after a while. A big word of warning, this isn't a place for you to come if you have mobility issues of any sort. It's very steep,
Very
lots of steps, and it's uneven. So it's kind of difficult to walk. There's a nice bench down there in the shade. I might sit down there for a minute. Taking the views.
Water fountain there. Castle gate, which is where we walked to when we first came into the castle. I've had an interesting walk around the Capdepera market and the village. It's very, very hilly, and we've just come up to the castle, which is even more hilly. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching. And if you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell. We look forward to seeing you in our next video. Bye for now. Bye.